Welcome to the Cloud Connectors mini-topics, where we cover a specific tool or technique to help you build, test, and scale your HR integrations. For the next 10 minutes, we will revisit the Smart Connector introduction in mini-topic 4, doing the exact same task, but instead using the web services version of our connector for Taleo Enterprise Edition. Here I'm starting with a nearly empty workflow with only ins and outs, so I'll need to install the Taleo Enterprise Edition package so that I can access the Smart Connector. To do that, I just need to go to the left-hand panel, select the Packages tab, search for Taleo, and install the Enterprise Edition pack. Next, I want to install the TEE Smart Connector, so I switch over to the Nodes tab and again search for Taleo, and here I can see a wide range of connectors, including ones which access the SOAP interface used by the Taleo Connect client, and others which invoke the actual Taleo Connect client application. The one that I want is the basic query node, which allows me to access the web services interface for the recruiting application. I'll drag that into the workflow, dismiss the left-hand panel, and wire it up to my standard in node. Double-clicking on the Smart Connector node itself brings up its configuration panel on the right. As always, there's a summary description of the node at the top and a link to our internal documentation. However, because Oracle does not currently have an up-to-date version of the API documentation published for general consumption, there is no link to the API documentation itself. The first item to configure is the description. It's always a good idea to give your nodes meaningful descriptions. I'll change this default to Get All Active Jobs, just as I did in mini-topic 4. The next option down the list is the connection. And just as we did in mini-topic 4, we'll come back to that in a bit, because doing so will require that we get credentials from our Taleo Enterprise sandbox. The next 3 items are options which are not necessary to complete the task at hand, so we'll leave them at their defaults. We will explore them in further detail in other videos. If you recall in mini-topic 4, we used the list jobs operation against the Greenhouse API. Nothing exists in the Taleo Enterprise API by that name, but looking at the list of supported operations, we can see that there is an option to query requisitions. We'll go ahead and use that option. Next, we have to set the filterings, and this will require some level of expertise with Taleo Enterprise. Anyone who has successfully configured queries using the Taleo Connect client application should be able to do this with ease, but if you don't have access to such a person within your organization, and if you do not have a current copy of the Connect client documentation, please feel free to reach out to the Cloud Connectors services team for assistance. Taleo wants to see an array, or list, of filtering options in the query, so let's expand the filterings, then add an entry in our list, array entry 0. We'll expand that entry, and what we choose depends on what we want. This can be much more dynamic, but I just want to keep it simple for demonstration purposes. So I'll set up a filter asking that the requisition's last modification is sometime in 2023. To do that, I select the Between option, and then specify the field by creating a new record, expanding its attributes, and checking the Path option. Here, I'll give the path information for the field that I want, which is, camel-cased, job information, last modified date. Next, we have to specify the date range, and this has to be an array of 2 dates, specifying the start and end of the between range. To do this, check the box next to Date and click on the View Query link at the top right of the Query Configuration panel. You'll see the field path attributes that we just created and an empty array next to the date parameter. Into that, we'll enter 2 ISO 8601 date strings to bracket the year, 2023-0101 and 2023-1231. You'll see that the section labeled Returns is empty because we haven't requested any specific fields. If you happen to know the field structure for Taleo Enterprise Edition, you can specify everything manually here, but I'm going to click Update and go back to the Point and Click menu. If you recall from mini-topic 4, we need the requisition ID, a title, and a description. In the Taleo universe, that is, respectively, the contest number, the title in the jobinformation.jobinformation section. We'll grab the locale and value so that if we have a title in multiple languages, we can distinguish. And finally, Taleo allows for internal and external descriptions. We'll grab both of those to see what they look like and which we can use. In some cases like this, it's worthwhile to pull more data than you need, because if you're going to reuse an integration for multiple departments within your company or for multiple clients across your customer base, they may want to have slightly different variations of the same integration. If you can anticipate and design for those variations, then you can build deployment options into the logic so that you can customize through configuration instead of code. We'll cover those topics in a different lesson. Now that we've got our query in place, we can see there are just two more options. The filters are there to allow us to reduce the query response if the options we wanted to filter on weren't available in the query. For now, we'll leave that as is. And finally, the payload attribute is already set for where the response is going to be stored in memory. So we're ready to set up our credentials. I'll save my workflow and we'll move over to my Taleo Enterprise sandbox. In order to set up integration access, you'll need administrator capabilities in the Taleo SmartOrg. Here you can see I'm logged into a Taleo sandbox and I need to get into the SmartOrg to create my integration user. So I'll click Configuration. Once in the Configuration menu, I'll click on Administration in the SmartOrg section and go to User Types. It may be that you already have an appropriate integration user type, so if you do, you can execute an appropriate search, such as searching for a user type with a name that includes the word integration. You'll want to check with your security team to be sure as to whether it's okay to use that same user type profile. I'll go ahead and create a new user type called Mini-Topic Integration by clicking the Create button and specifying that name as both the name and the code. Then, when specifying the access permissions, I'm just going to do what I need for this demonstration. I'll expand the integration section and choose Edit next to Recruiting, then check the button allowing the user to perform integration tasks. Click Save, and when the user type overview screen for your new type comes up, click on the Activate button so that you can use your new type. Next, let's go back to SmartOrg Administration by clicking on the breadcrumb, and then go into User Accounts in the Users section. Click the Create button, and in the wizard, provide a first and last name and a valid email address. All the other fields are optional. Click Next, and there are optional fields for the employee information. For the integration user, we don't need this, so click Next again. Finally, let's set up the username and password for the user, and save your credentials in a password manager where the appropriate members of your team can access them. Make sure to uncheck the Force User to Change Password at Next Login option, since the integration user has not been given permissions to log in manually, so this isn't appropriate. I'm going to set my validity period to always valid, but if your company has a policy of expiring credentials, you can set that up here and note the date so you can configure it in your workflow settings to enable warning notifications. Click Next, and in the User Types menu, you can add your new user type to your newly created account by clicking Add, searching for the name or code you gave your type, checking the box, and hitting Select. Once you return to the user type's parent view, click Next again, and in the Groups page, click Next again. Finally, click Finish, and you should be good to go. Going back to the Cloud Connectors Editor console, let's scroll up to the top of the Taleo Enterprise Query Nodes configuration panel. In the Connection dropdown, we'll create a new context definition and value, and name it Taleo Enterprise, and put TEE Sandbox in the description and help text. That's the context entry, which points to the actual secret so that when you save, it'll bring up a dialog box where you can configure your credentials. Name the secret and give it a description, and enter your Taleo zone into the endpoint. In my case, it's https://rmqadev01.pp.taleo.net, but your zone will be something like yourcompanyname.taleo.net or stg.yourcompanyname.taleo.net. I'll type in my credentials and paste in my password, and I'm almost there. Remember the option to set a validity period for your Taleo password. Here's where you can set a matching expiration date to enable the option for setting an alert. I'll leave it unchecked and hit Save, and I'm ready to test. To do that, I'll put a halt on the Taleo query node. Then I'll start the workflow running. The green light indicates that it's done, so we'll look at the output. As expected, we see a payload attribute called Taleo Enterprise, and within it, we can see we've got a list of 4 query requisitions objects. And if we expand this last one, we can see that it's got a contest number that suggests it was made just for this video, Mini Topic 5. Expand the job information structures, and we'll see we have an English title of Integration Developer 1. We expand the external and internal descriptions, and we can see that we have indeed gotten the appropriate values for that, all ready to be sent down to the destination system that's awaiting this data. Thank you for watching the Cloud Connectors mini topic introducing smart connectors using the Taleo Enterprise Edition query node. You'll see this technique used in other mini-topics as well. Please check out all the mini-topics in the Cloud Connectors channel.